Greetings and welcome to Caribbean Vanguard. So today I want to take some time to recognize a hero, a giant in the Caribbean and in the globe. Her name is Elma Francois. Now you can find stories about Elma throughout the internet, but I want to point out some things that you're not going to find on the internet, right? When it comes to Elma and when it comes to the situation at the time. Because what I realized while reading about Elma and the people who choose to write about her, they have an agenda. They have an agenda, and their agenda does not totally align with us, right? They have their own reasons for doing it. Elma was born in 1887 on the island of St. Vincent, and she passed away in 1944 on Trinidad at the age of 57. The cause of death was due to complications of the thyroid. Now, like I said, Elma has a stellar resume. She was a political activist and her influence went beyond the Caribbean. It was global. As a youth growing up on St. Vincent, Elma Francois worked the cotton field with her mother. Her mother's name was Estina Francois. In 1992, when the Soufriere volcano erupted, she uprooted her family and moved them to the city. They lost their home and their belongings. While in St. Vincent, Elma became involved in politics. She got involved with the Representative Government Association, which was a group that sought to introduce elected representation into the local legislature. Her longtime friend, Jim Barrett, talked about how Elma would easily spend hours upon a time talking about the conditions of agricultural laborers and the few opportunities or the limited opportunities in the country, especially for poor people to earn a living. In 1919, at the age of 22, she migrated to Trinidad and she left her son, whose name was Cameron James, with her mother. While in Trinidad, she found work as a domestic servant in the home of a wealthy white upper-class family in the Republic's capital of Port of Spain. And what she did there with the money, she would buy packages and send them home to her mom to take care of her son. Now, pause right here. A lot of time people hear this or they read white upper-class family provided job, and that's the thing they focus on. They say, see, a white person provided job for her. But we don't realize how things really work. This family was loyal to the British Crown. They are there for a purpose, to continue the interests of the British Crown. They are not really for the people. She's a servant to them to make their life easier. At the same time, she gains some benefit. But the benefit that she gains does not compare with the benefit that the British Crown and that family get, because now other Trinidadians are seeing a white family providing job and they see this family as a savior, and they end up putting down their guards, and then these family end up gaining far more grounds and more power over the people, which is something we need to be aware of at all times. So I am not saying it's a bad thing that the family provided a job, but I'm simply saying that we should not lose focus. We should not lay down our guards and stop fighting to build our own because some upper-class white family provided job. In the 1920s, she ended up becoming a member of the Trinidad Working Men's Association, which was then led by Captain Arthur Capriani. Capriani was born in 1878. He was the son of Corsican immigrants in the British colony of Trinidad. Elma Francois was critical of his leadership style, so there was something going on there, but there hasn't been too much that was said about it. But there was something going on there. There was some friction. She did not like his accommodationist style. Again, this man was loyal to the crown. So he was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Either he's going to be for the people who are suffering, the poor people on the ground who are fighting, or he's going to be loyal to the people that put him in a position of leadership. the people that put him in a position of authority. And whose side do you think he's going to be on? He's more aligned with the people in power. Who gave him the power? He is of the same people in the first place. Those are his people. Those are his kindred. So this guy came from a migrant family, immigrant family, and they were at the top right away. They did not have to go through the struggles of the local people, right? Worked for the UK, the British Crown, and he was already placed in a position of prominence. His interest was mainly political and becoming a reformist. Upon completing his secondary education, he entered the family's successful cocoa business. And his political career actually began in World War I when he led a one-man campaign for the creation of a regiment of non-white West Indian soldiers. And again, pause, people would hear this or read this and say, oh, that's amazing. But again, if we look at how things operated back then, this guy was able to use the talent that's there because, it was mostly African people, or all black people, or local people, indigenous people, and he was able to create an army to make him look good for World War I, to get black people to go out there and die for a war that they had nothing to do with. And many people look at this as some successful thing, but in my eyes, it is not a thing that we should be proud of like that. The regiment that he formed it in 1916 as a British West Indian Regiment, and Capriani rose to the rank of captain and commander. So it looked good in the eyes of the crown that this man was able to formulate an army of black people, and they were amazed in the way the people fought. In 1919, he became president of the Trinidad Working Men's Association, right? And I need to point out some of the things that he accomplished that was good in the eyes of the people. He led the formation of the Trinidad Labour Party, TLP, that was allied with the Fabian Socialist British Labour Party. He fought for 8-hour workday, minimum wage, workers' compensation, old age compensation, representative government, legalization of trade unions, universal suffrage, and equal rights for women. And these are things that were already in existence in UK, right? So the local people was also aware of these things. So just like the white family that provided a job, yes, he did some good things, but people use this against us, right? Where they're like, hey, you didn't have nothing, but now you have something, so you need to be thankful about it, right? And that's something that we do a lot, and we would settle there, but we should not settle there. We should be like, hey, that's good you do these things, but we're not going to have you put a cap on us, because that is what a lot of these people do who were placed in position by the crown. And I'm referring to not only Capriani as a white man, but also black people who are placed in this position, who are loyal to the crown. And their loyalty is between a rock and a hard place. And they're going to listen to the crown over the people. Even though the people gain certain privilege, there's still a cap. You will never gain total independence. And that is the thing we should be looking for at all times. Capriani was elected mayor of Port of Spain on 8 separate occasions, and between 1925 and 1945, repeatedly elected to the Legislative Council. Trinidadian author C.L.R. James called him the most important pre-independence figure in the struggle of social justice and political rights in Trinidad and in much of the Eastern Caribbean. And that is his opinion. And I respect that. He was able to get the UK to allow some of their rights that they have to the local people. But as mentioned earlier, all it did was put us more under the grasp of the UK. Because now the people are looking at this and say, hey, they are the ones that gave us this, so we should stay under them. Versus, hey, we need to try to gain this for ourselves. Because there was such a little transparency in what happens outside of the country, the people that was put in place of power, such as Capriani, was able to convince the crown that, hey, we have this under control. We have the people on our side. We have the people to support us. So you can take a risk and allow some of these social policies to fly. Some of the policies that the people benefit from in the UK. We have this under control. These people are advisors. So in a sense, it looks like Capriani is fighting for the people, but he's actually fighting for the crown. And until someone can prove me wrong, that is what I'm going to believe, because that is what history has shown us throughout the times. And these are the things that's been happening. Up to this day, it's still happening. But instead, we have a lot of people that look like us in these places, which is very clever, on the side of the powers that be. I have to assume, and we should assume, that these people were providing advice to the crown by telling them, hey, we have this under control. And it is best that you allow these particular social policies to fly, because this is going to help you to have more control and for a much longer time. If we convince the people that you are for their best interest, that the people that you put in place for them is looking out for their best interests. So I believe that we got a wool pulled over our eye, and they convince us that these people are really looking out for us. But on the reverse side, they were actually looking out for the crown, and they were planting a deeper root and giving them more control over the people, because they realized that the crown was not going to be able to maintain such hard policies on the people of the Caribbean or any place in the world. So a softer leadership role would serve them better. And it did, because up to this day, we're still sitting under their authority. To this day, I am yet to see the Caribbean really stand together and say, look, we finally want to be free for real. We talk about independence, but it's not really independence, because what they do, they end up sending representatives, and we put these people in key position, people who are loyalists to the crown. All right, in 1934, she founded the National Unemployment Movement, NUM. Her and along with others founded the National Unemployment Movement, and in 1935 founded the Negro Welfare Cultural Social Association, NWSCA. From 1935 to 1936, she led a local agitation against Mussolini's Italians' invasion of Abyssinia, Ethiopia. And this is another thing I want to point out, that her influence was universal. She paid attention to what was happening with her people throughout the world. Right? She did not say, hey, that is Ethiopia, that is Abyssinia, we have nothing to do with that. You know, like some people would say today, hey, just focus on your family, keep your head down and just focus on your family. While they have people with agendas who are working from the outside in and from the inside out to influence their family, right? So we got to look at things from a broader spectrum. I have to really get back to where we look at ourselves as a family and back off of this nationality thing, which I've seen a lot of people have adopted. In 1937, her along with the NWCSA led labor disturbance in Trinidad, where she was charged for sedition. And in 1938, she was tried and acquitted after her spirited defense. Just like any other government, at the time, they would put a lot of heat on these people. They would make them criminals. And once these people die, or once they kill these people, they would eventually make them national heroes if they realize that these people have a lot of following and that a lot of people respect them. And many times we fall for that. We say, oh, they have made her a national hero, so now they would get the followers of Elma to fall in line under that government, right? But again, the people need to be wary of having too much of a loyalty to a lot of these governments out here, because those governments' loyalty is with the crown that's above them, right? The rich people that is above them. And these rich people many times has an agenda. And if you realize, a lot of them is usually from a certain geography or from a certain lineage. From 1937 to 1940, she was involved in developing the Federated Workers Trade Union, the Public Works and Public Service Workers Trade Union, and the Seaman and Waterfront Workers Trade Union. And in 1939, she campaigned against local support for participation in World War II. A few days ago when I was reading about Elma, I realized that a lot of people writing about her are people who are descendants of the UK and so forth. And I've seen feminists take her story and like to put in there, hey, she did this for women and so forth, so forth. Right? And we need to be wary of these little strategies. There's always something. There's always something, and we need to assume that if they find an opportunity to take advantage, they will take it. Elma was not some feminist just looking out for women. She was looking out for the poor people. She was looking out for her people. We have to understand what Trinidad was going through at the time, what the Caribbean was going through, and what the world was going through. It was a universal thing, a universal struggle, and it is still a universal struggle. We cannot allow anyone to hide that from us by making us believe that it's all about nationality. It's not about nationality. It's beyond that. Much respect for Elma Francois. May she rest in power. We need to continue pushing towards real independence. If you want to read more about Elma, please see the description below. I have the links. So that's all I have for now. Until next time, be blessed.